Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Morrissey. I'm Adam Morrissey. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by former NFL player Brandon Zylstra and Vayner sports agent Jayme Moten. How's it going today, guys? Thanks for coming on the show.
Fantastic.
Good.
I'm excited to be on here.
Yeah, likewise, guys. We've been going real deep the last few episodes, so excited to have a lighter conversation with you guys. Both have great kind of unlikely stories, so excited to have a conversation about some of the overlooked aspects of sports and some of the things each of you guys have learned along the way. Brandon, knowing a little bit about your story in the past, I mean, from Spicer, Minnesota, D3 football to what's that?
It's a shout out, Spicer, Minnesota.
NLS. Yeah, totally. 7-man football. I'm kidding. But they brought you to the NFL, like Minnesota, Carolina, Detroit. How do you think about that journey?
It was a journey, obviously. Just all the stuff you had to go through, all the stuff I had to learn on my own. Just not having an agent coming out of college and just essentially figuring out the journey on my own. I think taught me a lot, outside of football as well. But I don't know. I mean, it was super fun journey, very, unlikely. A lot of twists and turns, but we made it work.
Yeah, but for those who don't know, you played D3 football at a small school in Minnesota. Then after school, did you know you were going to go to the CFL? You probably didn't know you were going to break records in the CFL, but you probably had to navigate that all by yourself.
So a lot of that, like I said, not having an agent, trying to figure out that, just coming from a small Division III school, playing receiver. And if anybody knows anything about football, I played in a triple option. So I literally kind of put myself at the lowest you could kind of be at the totem pole before trying to make that next step.
I'd say just jumping into Brandon's story to know, it's a hard thing to really speak on because I feel like Brandon knew. We talked about it all the time. He always said he was going to go pro. He always said that he wanted to play at the highest level. And so maybe other people didn't think it. Even myself at times, have a little doubt here and there, but I feel like Brandon knew the entire time. And that's kind of why I believe he got to that point. And I mean, speaking to your thing on agents, Brandon, now since being an agent for a few years and I've had to work with a Division III player in the past, I understand how many obstacles it is and how it almost damn near seems impossible at times. Unless you're one of the few guys at the Division III level that are, getting drafted, typically an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman that can show their size and strength. But for Brandon, it's honestly, I feel like if you would have been talking to a bunch of agents, if you would have been involved a lot more, it would have seemed a lot harder than it did to you. You wouldn't have done all the stuff that you did because of all the doors and stuff that are up. Speaking to an agent, whenever I speak to a Division III kid, I have to lay it straight to how hard it really is. But for you, when you were going through it, you were almost blind to all that stuff, and you just kind of kept, taking one step to the next, one step to the next, and finally, teams started to see your worth when you're in the CFL. So I kind of feel it was almost a blessing in disguise that you had nobody in your corner during that period of time. And you always took the right steps to work with, Griff or whoever was around you to be making your body better for the next level. So I felt like you're always doing those things at a professional level. But from the barriers to entry, is almost like you were blind to them. And it really helped you just to kind of always keep it moving and never really get discouraged in any way. Because you even see guys at the highest level that, have played at the highest level, played in huge games, but then they run into one of those barriers and it's well, I don't know if I can make it through it, or maybe I should look into something different, where Brandon was kind of this is the only way. So I just have to figure out how to make it work.
Well, just kind of on top of that too, I actually talked about this recently on another podcast. Somebody asked me about that, what was your plan B if football didn't work out? And that's something I heard this quote from Will Smith at one point that said, don't have a plan B because it distracts from plan A. And I really took that to heart. And I essentially, in my mind, what I told myself is if football doesn't work out, you're homeless. And that was just a way for me to put all my chips in. That's why I was not afraid to fail. That's why I was not afraid to really just put myself out there and exhaust every resource and exhaust myself at every workout because I told myself, like, this is the only way. Like, this was your goal. You are a super stubborn, competitive individual. Like, you're going to make this work. And that was just always kind of like my mindset going into it. And
I know you played on
yeah.
the Minnesota Vikings, but in case you guys didn't know this, the actual Vikings, what they would do when they would, sail across the sea and land on like a place where a battle would take place, the first thing they would do is burn their boats. No going home. The only way they're going out is by winning the battle. Jayme, you and Brandon grew up together. How did you mentioned, Brandon, like the obstacles you faced on not having an agent at certain points? It sounds like it was actually a positive in disguise. How did you guys put it together that, Jayme would step into this role as your agent?
I think that like initially, when he was kind of going over to CFL, I was still playing basketball myself. I had an injury, and so I kind of had saw that maybe the professional route wasn't, overseas professional route wasn't the route that I wanted to even necessarily try. Like I was a little bit more ambitious to maybe jump into the business world. And so when we would just always be spitballing about stuff, and when he started to get some love from the NFL, it was kind of like more of like damn, that would be fun for us to kind of work together. And we've always had a plan to work together in something. But then it was kind of more of like, maybe you could be my agent, or maybe you look into being my agent, kind of all that. And so once we kind of had the idea, it was on me to make it work, I would say, to go, get my agent license, figure out, resources, have an agency, have a backing, have a place that, like, if Brandon were ever to sign with me, it would be good for him too. It wouldn't just be like him signing with me as out of charity, or him signing with me because I'm his best friend. And so I was blessed to run into one of if I think is the best agent in the NFL, and Mike McCartney, in the Chicago area. And so I built a great relationship with him. And then over time, I got my NFLPA license or certification, became an agent, and then I had to beg Brandon every day to switch over to me. No, not necessarily beg, but I had to ask him every single day, recruit him every day for about a year, still maybe 7-8 months after I got my certification. I had a couple different clients underneath my belt with Mike at that point too, prior to Brandon coming over, and that was always like, in the moment, it was always like, bro, come on, like we've talked about this for years, and now the opportunity's here. Like, how have you not jumped yet? But it really did help me in the looking back on it, it just helped me kind of grind and prove to him, which essentially proved to everybody, that I belonged in this space, and myself and my team could do it at the highest level. And that I was learning, and he wanted me to necessarily, I guess, like go through those growing pains, of course, too, before he took his career into my work as well. But it kind of just started off as a fun idea, and something that we knew we'd always work together on something. We didn't know necessarily what it was. But then I saw this door open from him jumping into the NFL at that time and doing well, and then me building an incredible relationship with Mike McCartney, and him wanting to mentor me and kind of take me under his wing and, teach me the ways, I think, of, just the business, right? Like, you can have as many relationships as possible, but if you don't know the business, you can't represent your player at the highest level. And so once that kind of all came together, it was a no-brainer. But I think, it took, like I said, 6-7 months of kind of proving my worth and proving, what I had on my side with Mike and the team before Brandon came over, and then Shane, and then we kind of got it running from there.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I don't know if you remember what I used to tell you, but I used to tell you, like, this ain't a game. This is my career. Yeah. Like, prove to me that, I can trust you and that you're worth it and whatnot. And so I still do think it's kind of funny that I made him wait that long, because like you said, he would tell me and be like, bro, like what's up? And whatever.
Knocked
and then,
out every step that we talked about. I'm an agent now. I'm with a great backing. I've got the best contract agent on my side with me. It was like all these things. Is like, let's go. And he's like, not yet. But essentially, it pushed me to sign and to work with some other great players in the meantime, while I was, trying to work at my highest level to get my best friend to come over as well.
And what I think is so amazing about that story that probably doesn't get enough credit, Jayme, is just how unlikely your story is. Like, I'm from Ohio, so like not too far away from you guys are from, but like I only know one person that's an agent in any capacity in any industry from Ohio. Like, if you're not from New York, Chicago, Miami, it's pretty tough to do. What was the hardest thing for you about entering the agency world?
Entering was initially off the jump. It was because I wanted to be in the wrong sport, honestly. When I met Mike McCartney at our last agency, at the time, I grew up playing basketball. I was in basketball. I felt like I knew the sport of basketball better, and my heart was there at the time. And so I wanted to necessarily continue on to that. And so I fought for about a year ish, maybe a year and a half, trying to get into the NBA scene with the agency, and it just wasn't the right fit at the time, and which was great because they were very kind and helpful in the meantime of trying to hire me or me trying to get hired there. And so once that when that didn't work out, Mike on the football side was very like, hey, I love your ambition, I love your energy, your work ethic. I think we can work really well together. I just got to teach you the business a lot more. And so I'd say like, trying to figure out my where I fit in was probably the hardest part right away. Once I started working with Mike and got in the football realm, it was kind of like go. Like there wasn't a whole lot of like, all right, this is where you start. This is the things you need to be doing. It was more of just like, hey, go, and it's a really competitive space. So figure it out. And so, Mike and I work together really, really well to kind of figure out what my role would be. And my role's always got to be constantly growing into much more of a, independent. I could do it, on my own with the agency role. Now, I never would want to be there. I'd always want a full team and everybody around me. But I do think there's a strength to have an agent that can handle everything on and off field as well whenever you do get there. But yeah, I've noticed now over the 4 or 5 year span that I've been doing this that the barrier of entry is tough. You got to have your master's, you got to pass the NFLPA test, which costs money. You got to get the right insurance, which costs money, and you got to have the right people around you that are attractive and do great work for the players too. So as I'm seeing it now, like I was completely blessed to run into the guy that I hopefully will work with my entire career until he retires. But for other people, I can definitely see that like just building that relationship and getting to a point within an agency that it's like you bring value to us. So let's get running from there. It's really, really tough. Like I said, I was blessed. I ran into Mike at a gym. Honestly, like I broke my foot. My college teammate was like, "Hey, come to this gym. I know the trainer, and he'll rehab you for free." And I'm a college kid, didn't want to really pay a whole lot when it came to extra rehab and stuff. And I was trying to get back on the court. And so my college teammate introduced me to this trainer, this tiny, small gym in Chicago, probably holds about 5 people at a time. And I was going in there like 5, 6 o'clock in the mornings before classes would start. And this guy, Mike, was in there every single morning that I was. And I couldn't move a whole lot of the time, but he was getting a workout in, like just an animal in there. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not trying to hype him up, but he was an animal in there. And so finally, I'm just like asking the trainer, like, who is this guy? Like, who is he? What does he do? And then he kind of let me know a little bit about his background and his past and people he's represented. And then at that point, I just kind of like that sounds exactly what, I want to do. Plus, it was the same timing that Brandon and I were talking about, him transitioning from the CFL to the NFL. And so he was kind of like talking about agents, meeting a few of them. And so when I came across Mike, I was like, hey, you got time to get a conversation with him, whatever it may be. And so once that conversation started and we all kind of got together in a I think it was a phone call maybe at the time. It just kind of like clicked, like the picture was there. And at that point, it was like, this is what I want to do. And kind of like Brandon said about football, it was like there was no other option at that point. It was like, become an agent, be the best agent you can. And this is going to be a lifelong career because, yeah, you guys get it when you're in college and you're looking at different professions. It's more of like jobs versus professions. And this seemed like a lifelong career profession route that I was excited about, where it wasn't like, damn, I got to go to work. And so it was like, I'm going to put all my eggs, everything I got in that basket to try to make it work because it could change my life. And so, yeah, like I said, like the hardest part would probably be just, figuring out where you fit in and building that relationship with an agency, because if you're a smaller agency, not saying you can't succeed, because a lot of smaller agents and agencies do, but it's a dog eat dog world out there, and a lot of times the team with more resources and that are doing better work end up winning. So I definitely wanted to be, at the top with those, and I was blessed to start out there with Mike at our last agency, and then we made a transition over to Vayner Sports that I think just made us much stronger even.
Super cool. Yeah, it's interesting as I learn more. Obviously, know more about Brandon's story than yours, Jayme, but like how they're kind of mirrors of each other, and similar to the fact that the agency world is kind of like an unseen part. You hear about it every once in a while when a contract is signed and such, but so is life as a bubble player. So like you hear
Yes.
stories about Patrick Mahomes and stuff, but Brandon, you had a great career, many years, touchdowns, kickoffs even, which is hilarious. I mean, could you share a little bit about your experiences and any stories that stand out from like being on the bubble?
So the life of a bubble player, I was somebody who was always, honestly, almost every single team I joined, I'm talking, I guess it started at Augustana, the first college I went to, but I'm talking mainly CFL and all the NFL teams. When I would come into training camp, I was just this big, tall, white receiver. And I would legit start at the bottom of the roster. Every single year, I was at the bottom of the roster. I vividly actually remember telling Jayme like these stories, like, I'm at the bottom again. Even my second year in the NFL, I beat out a lot of people who actually had names, had guaranteed money and whatnot. And then the very next year, I was right at the bottom. I remember calling Jayme one time, and I was just like, dude, I finished out, number 4 or 5 receiver last year, actually playing, big special teams guy. And I'm number 14 again, 14 of 14. Like, this is crazy. But like, I think that was good for me because I had the work ethic, and I just didn't, I guess being a bubble player never actually scared me. I just knew that I was willing to do more than everybody else. So life of bubble player, it was my job, or like I was not afraid to go do all these special team stuff, which a lot of players don't like to do. Some of them, one, don't know how, two, think they're too good for that, or think they deserve more. So like it was on me to like, well, cool, I'll go do that. That goes off to that kickoff story. Just being and willing to do anything. But I guess outside of like the actual football thing, it's being a good player. It's mentoring the younger guys. Like I feel like I was always a good teammate in the locker room. A lot of younger guys, a lot of like rookies and stuff would come up and talk to me just because I knew the life of a bubble player. I would tell them, what coaches are looking for, how to talk to them, how to study, maybe go study with them, go through the playbook with them, tell them how to stand out a little bit more on the football field. But like, I would say almost every single year I would try to find one guy that I thought kind of like, some guy where I've been in his position before, he like some guy that I think is talented that is maybe being overlooked or is lacking the confidence or something like that. And I would always try to go like essentially mentor those kids and just try to give them at least a better shot of, the experiences that I had, trying to take those same experiences and try to give it to them. I never had any kind of problem trying to help anybody else because I always figured, because obviously, I'm trying to mentor guys in the same position as me, but my thought process behind it was always like, I'm going to try to help make you better because ultimately that's going to make me better. Because, if you're starting to perform better, I'm somebody who thrives off of competition in general. So like, if I see you getting better, I'm going to go and do that much more to, prove that I deserve to be higher than you on the roster. More than happy to, help you, but I'm going to elevate too.
Could you share a little bit about the experience moving from Minnesota to Carolina?
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. The transition process that the average fan just doesn't exactly see. But I'm in Minnesota. I get the call. I'm cut. So after you're cut, you get a 24-hour like waiver period where a team can essentially put a claim on you, and depending upon like their ranking in the waiver wire order. I mean, it's a lot like fantasy football if anybody plays fantasy football, but like if they claim you, you're going there. And so I get cut, and that I get cut on Friday at noon. Saturday comes around, Saturday morning, still haven't heard anything. I think I might have been at Jayme's house actually, or heading
No,
to Jayme's house.
at the house. I
Yeah, I was at
I
Jayme's.
remember it vividly because you had about like 40. It was like 40 minutes left of the waiver wire. We had just got off the
Yeah.
phone talking to Mike about like what's it look like if you end up clearing waivers, and you got claimed with 40 minutes left. And I remember you running out the house because you were running to your place to grab your stuff, and all your stuff was in my basement.
No, so talking with the agent, the Vikings wanted me to come back on practice roster, and they kept trying to tell me, Brandon, come in, sign your papers, and I was just like, look, my agent told me to wait. You know, there's still an hour left, there's still 45 minutes left, and I think at that point it was probably like 2 hours, and then when it got down to an hour, I called my agent again. I was like, still nothing? He goes, no. He goes, all right, you can start heading into the facility. You know, go sign your practice roster papers. So I'm literally on 94, headed to the facility, and I get a text from one of my friends. It was Ryan Turnquist, Jayme.
Yeah.
One of my friends texted me, and he goes, I'm officially a Carolina Panthers fan. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And then 2 seconds later, my agent calls, and he goes, congratulations, you're a Carolina Panther. I was just like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, they just put in the claim, you know, you had 40 minutes left or whatever. And I was just like, okay. So I literally hit the next exit, turned back around, went to Jayme's, and Carolina called me. They're just like, you know, we just put a claim on you. And this is, mind you, this is noon at the time. We just put a claim on you. There's a flight for 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Which one can you get on? And I was just, it's that quick. Like, practice is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, practice starts tomorrow. So I'm just like, that's crazy. It's a turnaround that quick. So I literally went back to Jayme's, threw a bunch of stuff in a duffel bag, hit the flight at 5, and was in Charlotte by 7 that night. They pick you up from the airport, drop you off at the hotel, give you a playbook, and you just hit the ground running. So like, it's kind of a long, or like it's obviously a shock to anybody, because not only do you have to start a new job, you have to learn the playbook, you have to learn the facility. I knew literally nobody in Charlotte. I didn't know anything about Charlotte, never been to North Carolina. So it's not, I don't want to say a culture shock, but it's kind of a culture shock in that sense, going into somewhere so unknown. And while you need to focus on, you know, the main thing, keep the main thing, right? I need to do what I can to, you know, show my worth and be a part of this team and earn my stripes. All in the background, I need to find a place to live now. I need to find out how to get all my stuff to Charlotte. And so luckily enough, I had all my stuff at Jayme's house, and I literally called him up, and I was like, yo, what's up? I was just like, you want to come to Charlotte? So he ended up actually throwing literally my entire life in my car and driving my car from Minnesota down to Charlotte. And then while I'm at work, while I'm at the facility, you know, doing all that stuff, this dude actually went and found different apartments that we're going to go to. Like he helped get my life together. But it's just crazy, like how fast all that stuff happens. And like I said, the average fan just doesn't see that life. They just see, you know, you on TVs on Sunday, but they don't think about this man literally just moved across the country with none of his stuff, trying to find a place to live, while also, you know, being at the facility from 6 until 9, trying to learn this playbook, because like you don't have time to wait. Like week 1 starts and you just get thrown right into practice. And honestly, I remember that first practice too, like going out there, they just expect you to figure it out. Like I had obviously been with the playbook for a few hours maybe at that point, but you get into practice, I'm in the huddle with Cam Newton, and I literally look and I was just like, y'all need to tell me what to do. Like, I don't know anything. And they're like, oh, you'll be fine. They said the play, and I literally just look at him and I was like, I know where to go. I remember tonight, but like, what am I doing? And so it's just crazy how fast you're thrusted into everything and just kind of expected to figure it out.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I love the fact that your friend found out before you did. I'm sure that's not by design, but that's how it works. I also think it's amazing too, Jayme, on your side, as much ambiguity as Brandon has transitioning, like you as his agent are like, oh, like, I guess I'll help you set up your electric bills.
Well, I wasn't even his agent at the time.
You're still earning your stripes too.
Yeah, I was going through I was working at a different job and then also like studying for the NFLPA test at the time. So I ended up becoming an agent later that year. But when I had gone down to Charlotte with Brandon and all of his stuff, I was just kind of like, I had free time. Like I was, I was there because I brought his stuff down, and I just was kind of like, what do you need? All that type of stuff, so I could knock out some of it while he was, like he said, at work. Little did I know that was like being an agent. Like that's part of what we do. And I have a team now and have people that are much better at the client service realm of finding those type of things and understanding how the team, the Panthers could have helped out at the time too, which we didn't really know anything about as well. But like it is funny looking back on it, like me being at multiple different apartment complexes trying to work out a deal because we have no idea if you're there for a month or 6 months or whatever. So just making sure he wasn't tied into like a long-term, leasing contract and stuff like that at that time. But it was just kind of like us, like you said, winging it and figuring it out along the ways. But those are the best stories because we were just so new to everything. But now like we could look back, and I was just thinking like Brandon, you being a fringe player and never knowing where you're going to go or what is stable, like that has now transitioned into your current life or where you're at now, because like you're just like, maybe I want to be here for a month, maybe I want to be here for 6 months. Like I'm comfortable in being able to move and do this and that now without it feeling hectic in any way, that you kind of have this like almost like flexibility all the time. But again, when at the time it was like, man, what are we doing? Like neither one of us had ever even been to North Carolina. Like when I thought of North Carolina, I thought of UNC and Duke. Like that was about it. Other than that, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I found also, like, I think one of the highest skills of leadership and success is comfort with ambiguity. And both of you guys have certainly had a lot of experience demonstrating that. Brandon, I'd be curious. I mean, you were in multiple organizations. Like, how do these teams work from like a management perspective, or just said another way, like what makes like a coach or a team or like a team leader great?
I thought, I guess if looking back at a few of my different experiences, looking at the head coach to start, the communication with the head coach, I think, is huge. The transparency with a head coach is huge. And so like, I say that to say like, and I don't want to like rag on certain people, but like one of my professional experiences, I had absolutely zero ties to the head coach, maybe talked to him twice in my life. Never felt comfortable around him. Then I go, the second place I played, I went to Carolina, and Ron Rivera is just this super personable. I go, I don't know anybody there. I don't know anybody on the team. I sit down in the lunchroom my first day. He comes and sits next to me, starts asking questions. And I just that took me by shock. I didn't know, like I've never had that experience with another coach, I guess, at that level. Cause, obviously things are a little bit different in the NFL, but, that said a lot about him and made me respect him so much more. And it's just like, dude, I want to play harder for this guy. Like he actually cares. A week later, he comes and sits down with me again, starts asking me about my brothers. And so it wasn't just the conversation, it was that he remembered and he actually cared. And I mean, that's why Ron Rivera, who he is today, and that's why guys love playing for him, is you could tell he actually cares and is passionate about his players. And, he tells you what you need to hear. He's very transparent. But then, transitioning to Detroit, having Dan Campbell as a head coach, that was I don't want to say another level up, but like, another former player. He knows how to talk to guys. He knows these guys, had a super tough game, a lot of injuries, a lot of these guys are wore out. Let's cut practice a little bit today. So he was somebody who he really understood the life of an NFL player. He understood what we're going through, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. And, he develops a culture around there, and his entire coaching staff are all former players. So they just got it, versus you go to some of these other organizations and a bunch of the coaches are, maybe played college or maybe only played high school and started their coaching ranks right away, but didn't actually play in the NFL. Being in Detroit, I thought it was by far the best overall coaching staff I've ever been a part of, because it was just a bunch of former players, and they knew how to talk to you. They knew how to present stuff to you. it was different. And obviously you can see what Detroit's doing now, just going on this tear that they're doing. What are they, 13-4 in the last, 18 games or 17, whatever it is. They've just, I think they really do it right there. I think they've built something, and I think that's all a testament to Dan Campbell and how he approaches the team, with his passion and his fire. And, it's easy to play for a guy like that. He generally cares about you. He's giving it your all. So like, you want to give your all back to him. You want to make him happy. And, yeah, so
that's super cool. Yeah, I've seen that a lot in organizations. Some keys to success would be, one's the concept of psychological safety.
Yeah.
It's like, do these people feel comfortable to be themselves?
Yes.
Comfortable giving their best? Like, they know that they can go for something and fail and still be respected and promoted. And then also, what I think is so amazing about teams is they're so autonomous. You got 25, I don't know how many coaches there are, but it might as well be 25 coaches, maybe more. And then you got all these different players all doing their job. So giving people the space to create and grow, I think is really important. Jayme, something I was wanting to pick your brain on is just because, like, you're hearing so much about it, and like, you see it with the Colorado football team probably most visibly. Like, how does like social media and NIL, I know two very different things, but connected. How has that changed the agency game?
I think it's changed it. I'm not going to say dramatically. It's definitely made it much earlier, right? Like you not social media, but NIL, you're recruiting, you're, trying to figure out who the next guy is much earlier than you probably were in the past. And that's because guys are necessarily maybe tying themselves to agencies a little bit earlier because they're allowed to use a marketing team. They're allowed to use, maybe it's financial advisors or just in general a management team around them at an earlier stage. I mean, when you're a 5-star kid in high school that, can make, X amount of money, and it's the first time any type of money has been coming in, and now there's contracts coming your way. Like, it's, you should have a team behind you. You should have somebody, behind you that has, some experience in the arena to, keep you safe, right? Because there's been evidence, and you can see that some people will try to do really bad deals with younger kids before they know it. But I honestly, like, I kind of agree with, I feel like the same thought process from the NFL, from the NIL perspective. Like, I think it's really good that these kids are getting paid, especially when it's around their worth and it's nothing shady in any way. And it also, like, it completely shows you who's in it for money and who's in it because they love the sport and the money comes with it. And so there's an opportunity to kind of, I guess, siphon out some of the, guys that you might have wasted your time on, or, might not, once they get that first, paycheck or rookie year, like, they're not the same grinding, got to put food on the table type person. And so I've enjoyed the NIL perspective to it. It definitely makes it more competitive because there's just more people are able to get in from money, from deals at the end of the day. But then from social media, like, social media in my eyes is just like, it's just a platform to grow your brand. Like, it honestly, like, social media has nothing to do with on-field production or on-field anything really at the end of the day. But it does have a lot to do with your off-the-field brand. If you handle your social media the right way, or have the right people around you that can paint the genuine picture, or, the picture that you want for your brand, it gives you this opportunity to really do something outside of just your sport, and to show your fan base and everybody, like, who you are. Like, especially in the football world versus basketball and other sports, like, you got a helmet on the entire time. You're not always the guy that's mic'd up. You can't be heard, in all these situations. So being able to use your social media or Twitch or, whatever it may be, to show who you are, I think is an awesome opportunity for guys. And obviously with, the opportunity, bad things can come and good things can come. So you got to have some management, the right head on your shoulders when approaching it. But from, like, a recruiting standpoint, or like the agent, to college kid standpoint, social media, I don't think has changed a whole lot. I think there's a lot of people that put out rankings and this and that, but the NFL teams don't listen to any of that. At the end of the day, it's all media based, and fan based, and, if you want to buy into it, you can. But realistically, like every single team is making their own decision off of a ton of reports and a ton of conversations about every single player. So the media and stuff is fun, and it's like it's cool to definitely follow and get big names and highlights and this and that. But from the team perspective, they don't let any of that out at the end of the day anyway. So it's kind of hard to like relay to some of the families and some of the players even of like, yeah, like maybe PFF has you as the number one player, but maybe only 10 teams have you as the number one player, and the other 22 don't, right? Or like, and again, in the draft, all it takes is one team to really like you anyways. But it's just every team has a different philosophy, has different, play style, has different fit. And so every team's going to have a different opinion on every player. So I guess like just like breaking them all up, I love the NIL side because it gives us an opportunity to, and that's the other thing that I didn't mention is like, from a kid's perspective, I love it because like now a kid can be a freshman in college. He can sign with me, work with me and my team, and he gets this trial period. He gets to really work with us over a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be, to really find out like, hey, these are the guys that I want to go into my professional career with. Or maybe you work with somebody for a year and it's like, hey, this wasn't the right fit, didn't have great communication. I'm going to, venture off to my other people that I had thought were really good and, I didn't go with. And I don't think guys should be switching all the time. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important for you to know who your people are. And it gives, the college guys, high school kids an opportunity to, hey, I go in there and tell you all these things that myself and my team can do. All right, give me 12 months, give me 24 months to show it to you as well. And if I can't do it, then it was just smoke. And so I think there's a lot of times in our business there can be just smoke, and it takes a little time. And in the past, I think guys would sign with an agent, get into their rookie year, and then find out that stuff was smoke 3 years into their rookie year. And now they're trying to find a new agent for their second contract rather than, doing that a little earlier. Work with your agent in college, and if he's everything that you guys have talked about and what you want, then weight off your shoulders and you can just go to work every day and your family and you are taken care of. And if it's not, then no skin off your back and you're able to break ties in a nice, kind way and try something else and a different option.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. When you're sharing that, I was thinking about like for you, saying no has to be such a powerful tool for the amount of opportunities there are to pursue, and then a lot of opportunities pursuing your clients. Also, when I'm hearing you say that, it's like, there's a Mark Twain quote that's, he who grabs the cat by his tail can learn something he could learn no other way. There's value to experience. So I think it'd be really hard to get some of these kids to realize the gravity of the decision they're making in choosing an agent, because to your point, they might only have one shot at it.
It's not, I don't want to say rare, but every NFL player's goal has to be to get to a second or third contract. That's where, you're making the guap of your money. That's where you're, really separating yourself, right? Like getting weight off your shoulders. So for a player to make the wrong decision on your first agent, in your rookie career, like that hurts. Like it's not the best thing that you want to do. And so you have an opportunity. Sorry, I used the word.
No, I like the reference.
So do I.
But for you to have that opportunity in college to, take a test run or a trial run, and for me, like I love it because I think myself and my team are going to knock it out the park. I don't really, whenever you sign us, like I'm very confident that we don't oversell, we don't, bluff anything. Like what we put out there is what we can do, and so I think we're going to do a good work. But it gives that that kid a chance to have the trial run, have the test period to it with somebody before they jump into their actual career. Because I mean, there's, like you said, like the agent world is behind the scenes a lot. Like, and Brandon maybe can attest to this too. But like if you ever got a 4-year contract, your year 1 and year 2, like there's not a whole lot that you're going to see from like a physical standpoint what your agent's doing unless things are going bad. Like if you've got an injury or you're getting cut or, maybe some issues with the team where you need a conversation. Like when things are going good, your year 1 and year 2, there's a ton of conversations that are being had. There's a lot of work that's being had, but it's all in the background. Like you don't really notice it on a daily basis. Like when Brandon was in Carolina, like, Mike, is talking to Rivera, or he's, talking to the front office from the GM or, the cap guy, or their perspective, every week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just to have those conversations, keep the relationship strong, and to, have your foot in the door, right? And that's stuff that we might talk to Brandon about, but he's not going to see any of that fruition come until he gets that opportunity, like I think in his career, I'll let him speak on it, but gets that opportunity to sign a new deal and, get maybe a little bit of an advantage or a little bit of something that other people might have not gotten in the past. So, I think that the longer you can work with someone, the more you can see if it's a good fit and if they're doing good work. And the NIL, door has opened up guys to start that early.
Sure.
I mean, there's kids in, freshmen in high school that, there's not much I can do for you right now, but we can talk about a lot. And when the time comes, we can strike. And if,
I've,
go ahead.
So, talking about like that prove it method and whatnot, do you almost use that as like a sales tactic when you're trying to sell to people? Because like for me as a client, if you explaining this whole situation to, to a player, like if I heard that from, somebody I'm talking like, this time for you is essentially a trial period, we'll help you out, during high school, college. And then when it comes to the NFL, like if you like essentially like let us prove to you our worth. Like I heard that from somebody, that to me, that's going to hold weight. So I was just curious if you actually use that when recruiting.
We definitely do, but it's different from, who you're talking to and what their other offers are. Right. So if I'm speaking to you and, you're cool with your trial period and this and that, like I have to go and make you money from the jump, right? Where other people might be coming in with money already. And so I think there's always a misunderstanding of like, can I get out of working with you, or if I can, in that sense, where I think that there's other, agents that come in and say, hey, sign with me, Brandon. I got 50,000 for you right now, and you haven't done anything yet, right? And so at that point, then it's like it's almost not a trial run anymore. Like you're kind of in the thick of it, and I don't know, contract wise, if you're getting out of it. I definitely speak to players with that a lot of times, but that's me coming to you almost with zero, and then let's run. So you have to like me and like my team to now give me a month, give me 2 months, give me 3 months versus, hey, here's the money in the bag right now. Yep. And now it's called a marketing guarantee. And so like, here's the money right now. And then after I give it to you, now my team has to go out and make that money back.
Wow.
And so there's different, perspectives to it. I see it as kind of like a credit in a way. And I don't like to, put debt on anybody or anything like that in any sorts. I'd rather, hey, like, this is what I think we can make you, and now let our team go do it. And if we don't do it, then there you go. Rather than, here's an X amount of money, and then we get a couple months down the road, it's like, well, your name wasn't big enough. We didn't have this or that, so we haven't made that money back yet. And you technically have to give it back to us or not go anywhere.
You guys have been really generous with your time. Before I let you go, are there like 1 or 2 books other than holy books that really make their ways around, either the NFL locker room or the agency world?
Yes, there is for me. Let me find it really quick.
Because I've read all the articles about like, oh, like the entire team is reading Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. Like I hear stuff like that, and I see them in like random articles, but I'm curious from your firsthand experience if they're like, these books that a lot of people are reading. Or I'm like, Jayme, in your world, like everyone's talking about Rich Paul's book right now.
Yeah, I'd say there's a book called Crunching Numbers by Jason Fitzgerald. And I think that's kind of like, that's where I started off, was like my very first kind of introductory to contracts and the bare basics of it all, right? Like just knowing like what a P5 was and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily go into like the psychology or like the, background of being an agent, more of just like the contract side of it. But I really like that book because it got me prepared for the NFLPA test. And a lot of times, like the stuff that matters, right? Like your contract at the end of the day, like how I represent you on the field is what matters most. What doesn't necessarily matter how many concerts we go to, or how many fun things that are sweet for you that I was able to get you in. If I can't represent you at the highest level, none of that stuff matters. So I was told to read Crunching Numbers, and that was the first book that I read off the bat. But that's one that stood out to me.
Awesome, man. Brandon, how about you?
I don't know if there's like one book in particular. So how I kind of see it is somebody read a book and then they're sharing their personal experience kind of with you, or like they shared that book with you. I don't think there's one that was more so all encompassing, or
yeah, sure.
Majority of the people read one book. It was always like, oh, I read this book and it helped me with psychology, or it helped me with dealing with failure and whatnot. So like, it's kind of more like generalizing it, or like making it more specific to you or your experiences. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. Was there one book that you were recommended by a teammate?
Well, I don't know. Have you read The Alchemist?
Oh yeah.
I've heard that one.
Like, that's very foundational for anyone living.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that one come up a bunch, and I've kind of wanted to read it, and I just haven't made a priority to it. But I have heard that one come up a lot.
I'll share about The Alchemist. What I thought was so interesting is like, I've read it twice. I read it when I was like, 20 years old, and then I read it again at like 28 or something. And what I thought was so interesting the first time I read it, I thought it was a book about a guy pursuing his own destiny. That's what I thought when I was 20. And then when I was like 28 or something, I realized that it's actually about like a destiny pursuing a guy. Like all of these amazing things are unfolding for the main character throughout the book, and really all he's doing is just taking the next step, and everything's working itself out.
I'm buying it right now as we speak.
Yeah, we'll catch up in 3 weeks. Okay, we'll do this and review the book.
Who wrote that?
Paulo Coelho, Brazilian.
I can send it to you right.
Yeah.
When are they coming on?
It's a good question. I haven't reached out to him, but he is on my list. So we'll send him this clip, and then he'll be on soon. Cool. Well, you guys coming on the show, guys. It was awesome to hear your mirror stories, which I don't think you guys get enough credit for, and then also the underside of some of the things that people don't see, both in the sports and the agency world.
I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate it.
I've been looking
good. Talk soon, guys. Hello, thanks for joining today. That was NFL agent Jayme Moten and former NFL player Brandon Zylstra talking about their unexpected and unlikely experiences rising to the highest levels of their organizations. What I thought was so cool about it was that how much of what they shared has nothing to do with being an NFL agent or player. So hope you enjoyed the show. Definitely let me know if you have any comments, questions, or feedback. We'll be happy to connect.